Das Radical.
So, a new legislation has been proposed to the Parliament of Iceland, one that would require Parliament to issue an official statement of apology to former Prime Minister Geir H for having been tried and convicted of wrongdoing in the wake of the 2008 financial crash. Did any of what I just said not make a whole lot of sense? Well, that's basically because it doesn't, but also because I didn't explain it very well. So let me try that. Geir H was Prime Minister during the 2008 crash. Okay, simple enough. And he's the one and actually only Prime Minister, or, well, any sort of minister that has ever been tried for wrongdoing while in office. You see, there's a when somebody is charged for, say, negligence or corruption or something, you know, some high office holder in the Icelandic government, a special court is erected for cases like this. They can't be tried by, you know, a local court or even the Supreme Court, but a special court called Landsdómur has to be set up in order to try cases like this. There were several charges laid against Geir, and he was acquitted of all of them except for violating Article 17 of the Constitution. I'll put it in text here because I can't read it off the top of my head, but something to basically he didn't fully inform his administration of the things he knew regarding the financial crash, something like that. However, it was considered to be such a minor offense that he was not even required to pay any fees or do any prison time or anything. Basically, he was found guilty, but did not suffer any punishment. Yeah, that's lucky, I suppose. But this new legislation that is being proposed would, as I said, make it so that the Parliament would officially have to apologize to Geir for having charged him or convicted him in the first place. I guess they didn't hear about the part where he was actually convicted. Yeah, like I said, it doesn't make much sense to me, because you would think that, you know, okay, if he had been acquitted of every charge, regardless of punishment or not, that yeah, maybe he would have gotten a statement of official apology, but he was found guilty in one of the charges, so what's with the apologies? I don't get it! So this new proposal to issue an apology to Geir is supported by every member out of a single Icelandic political party. Wanna guess which party? Oh, you were about to guess the Independence Party, weren't you? But no, actually there's only around 6 of them who have at least officially come forth to support the apology. No. So the one party whose all members support this article is, wanna guess again? Did you just guess the Center Party? Of course it's the Center Party! Who else would it be? But much to my surprise, 2 members of the People's Party also support this legislation. Like, the People's Party? Really? I don't... Okay. Now, it has to be said, though, and this is somewhat controversial, the idea of the Landsréttur, the special court set up to prosecute the state officials, is, well, it has a complicated history. That is because it has almost no history. So it's basically like the 5 highest the judges of the Supreme Court and the president of the Supreme Court and, I don't know, the highest law professor of the Iceland University, and 1 more member is, you know, is elected to this committee, and then the Parliament has to select, I believe, 8 members. Again, I'll put it here on the screen because I don't have it on the top of my head. So yeah, the problem that most people have with Landsréttur is that it's partially a political entity, meaning, yeah, so the ruling parties of the parliament can just select members that are loyal to them and could thereby prosecute somebody from the opposition party. So I guess many of the ones who support this legislation are thinking about it in this manner. Bjarni Benediktsson himself, and I believe also Sigurður Ingi, the chairman of the Progressive Party, they have both claimed that they feel that the idea of the Landsréttur is outdated and doesn't fit the modern standards of our democracy. You see, there are a lot of things in Icelandic legislature and even in our constitution that are somewhat outdated, or at least, you know, things that were written during times where this kind of legislation made sense, but nowadays we see democracy in a somewhat different light, and you know, there's better compartmentalization between different units of our government to get rid of, you know, to make sure that, say, Parliament doesn't entirely dictate what the Supreme Court does, or that the President does not have too much authority over the Parliament, and all of that stuff. And yeah, like I said, the Landsdómur was officially written into the Constitution in, I believe, 1905. Now, I do not support the idea of apologizing to Geir H. Haarde. Why? Oh, what part of found guilty do we have difficulty understanding? He is the only man who has ever been convicted by Landsdómur, and he was found guilty, albeit in the least of the offenses, but he's still guilty. So yeah, that's my personal verdict. However, the argument for you know, this court being used, theoretically speaking, for members of parliament to prosecute their political enemies is still a very important worry, and you know, I would like to look into that in the future, instead of, you know, simply getting rid of the Landsdómur, that maybe some of the laws would be changed to make sure that it is a little less biased, possibly less biased. But then again, one has to wonder, who prosecutes elected officials? Like, what office is higher than the Supreme Court and the Parliament? I mean, aside the President, but then again, wouldn't it also be weird if the President would take on the form of a prosecutor against, you know, governments that he has partially been responsible for selecting? So yeah, this is a very difficult question to answer on, like, who should have the supreme authority to basically charge and try and convict the highest office of the land, you know, like who is higher than the highest office. Now, but again, yeah, this office could theoretically be used for somebody to prosecute their political enemies, and that is not theoretical, by the way. That has happened before, and albeit not via Landsdómur. So, in 1932, Magnús Guðmundsson, who then was Minister of Finance, was actually charged and convicted for wrongdoing. I think he had owned like a law firm that went bankrupt, and he was charged of some wrongdoing having something to do with, I don't know, some payments on said law firm. I don't know, look it up for yourself. But basically he was tried and convicted by one of his political enemies, Hermann Jónasson, and yes, it's that Hermann Jónasson. And yeah, Hermann Jónasson was at the time not yet Prime Minister. He was police chief of Reykjavik and also acting judge of the Reykjavik court. Apparently that was not seen as a conflict of interest back then, you know, being both police chief and a judge. But anyway, he was later acquitted by the Supreme Court of all charges and was therefore allowed to continue as Minister of Justice. Now this is highly controversial, because this is one of these, the one side says this and the other side says that kind of situations where well, your interpretation of this ruling often depends on where in the political spectrum you are. However, it has to be said that this whole prosecution of somebody who is clearly your political enemy is highly questionable. So, yeah. So the lesson here is it cannot be too easy to prosecute a state official, because if it's too easy, then yeah, what stops the political opposition in doing that all the time? But on the other hand, and this is me saying that it should not be too difficult either. Otherwise we'll have Geir H Haardes running all over the place. I'm sorry, Geir, that I have to use your face as some sort of a archetype of corrupt Icelandic politicians. After all, you were only found guilty of violating Article 17. So this was me trying to explain the court case against Geir H Haarde and Landsdómur in as few words as possible. So, do you have any thoughts on the matter? Do you think Landsdómur is obsolete? Should it be dropped entirely, or should it merely be updated to better reflect the needs of today's democracy versus the democracy of decades ago? Let me know in the comments, if you please. I'm Johan Phoenix, and thanks for watching.
Das Radikal.